ooh chi bang bang, ooh chi wally wally, ooh chi bang bang, ooh chi wally wally, ooh chi bang bang, ooh chi wally wally. These bitches really got me fucked up. These bitches really trying me.
Mia Bennett, known to many as Petty Levels, was more than just a rapper and influencer. She had this fearless, unapologetic vibe that made her stand out in the world of social media and music. People either loved her or didn't get her at all, but one thing was clear: she made an impact. Then, one day, out of nowhere, the news hit. Mia was found dead near an airport in Tampa, and just like that, a young, vibrant life was gone. People were shocked. Fans were left in disbelief, and no one seemed to have any answers. Was it something she struggled with in private? Or was it just one of those things no one saw coming? The whole thing raised so many questions, and the world wanted to know what really happened to Mia Bennett. Mia Bennett was born on October 13th, 2000, in the heart of Philadelphia. Growing up in a city bursting with culture, music, and stories of survival, Mia always had a knack for standing out. From a young age, she was drawn to the rhythm of life around her, the way music seemed to tell the stories of the people in her neighborhood. It was like she couldn't help but be pulled into it. Whether it was listening to hip-hop or watching artists she admired pour their hearts out through lyrics, Mia felt a connection that went beyond just being a fan. Music wasn't just something she loved, it was the way she expressed herself. The way she could share the things she was feeling that words alone couldn't capture. As she got older, Mia began experimenting with writing her own lyrics. She'd lock herself in her room, scribbling words and thoughts on paper, trying to turn her emotions into verses. The beats she listened to weren't just background noise anymore, they became the foundation for her own sound. And as her passion for music grew, so did her hunger to share it with the world. She wasn't going to let her talent stay hidden. Then, social media came into the picture. Mia was already on Instagram, sharing little snippets of her life, like so many others. But she soon realized that this platform was more than just a place to post selfies and moments with friends. It could be the key to unlocking her future. So she began using it differently. She posted freestyle rap videos that showed off her skill, her clever wordplay, and most importantly, her confidence. There was something about the way she carried herself so bold, so real, that made people take notice. She didn't just blend in with the crowd, she was carving out a space for herself. And as her follower count grew, so did her sense of purpose. By the time she was in her late teens, Mia had learned how to turn her online presence into a full-on brand. Her posts became more intentional, more polished, and that's when things started to take off. She wasn't just another influencer, she was becoming a voice people wanted to hear. But it wasn't just about Instagram. Mia was all in. She branched out to other platforms, connecting with her fans on a deeper level, letting them into her world in ways that felt real and raw. Then came the music. Mia didn't just talk about wanting to be a star, she made it happen. In 2018, her debut single dropped, and it didn't take long for people to take notice. It was honest, full of energy, and true to who she was. That rawness in her music mixed with her unapologetic personality became her trademark. Her collaborations with big artists like Frito, Bang, and Latto only added to her growing presence in the music scene. The success wasn't just measured by chart rankings or streams, it was in the moments that took her career to the next level. Mia went from sharing her dreams online to living them out on stage, in the studio, and with fans. By the time she hit 1 million followers, it was clear Mia was no longer just a name on Instagram. She was a force. Mia Bennett was a walking paradox. On one hand, she was the embodiment of boldness, a fearless force who took control of every room she entered. Her public persona was loud, unapologetic, and full of confidence. You could see it in every Instagram post, every music video, and every interview. She had this way of commanding attention without even trying. Her words, her looks, her energy all told the world that she was here to stay. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, to let people know exactly who she was and what she stood for. Mia wasn't just a star in the making, she was already living like one. But behind that bold, outward-facing image, there was another side of Mia, a quieter, more introspective side that few people got to see. The girl who wrote her music in solitude, who spent hours crafting lyrics that spoke to her inner world. Those close to her knew this side well. Friends described Mia as someone who could sit in silence deep in thought, often reflecting on everything around her. There was a vulnerability to her that didn't quite match the bravado she showed to the world. While fans were cheering for her boldness, Mia was silently battling with the pressures that came with fame. It wasn't just about managing her image or keeping up with the constant demand for new content. It was about the heavy weight of expectations both from her fans and from herself. The world loved the confident, bold Mia, but the real Mia, the one behind the camera and the carefully curated posts, struggled with the pressure of it all. Maintaining that perfect public image came at a cost. The constant cycle of creating, posting, and being in the spotlight left little room for rest or self-care. Mia often spoke about how tiring it was to feel like she always had to be on, always performing, always showing up for her fans. Even when she felt far from okay. What made it harder was the toll that fame took on her mental health. While she was open about the highs of her career, she rarely spoke about the lows, the moments when she felt disconnected, the times when the pressure felt too overwhelming. Mental health wasn't something that many in the public eye were comfortable talking about, but Mia wasn't like most. She used her music and social media as outlets to express herself, but even then, there was only so much she could share before it all became too much. At times, Mia found herself trapped between two worlds. The world that saw her as a symbol of empowerment and success, and the world she lived in, where the reality of her struggles often went unnoticed. She had learned how to hide behind her public image, keeping her personal battles under wraps, yet those close to her could tell when something wasn't right. Her battle wasn't just with herself, it was with an industry that demanded constant perfection. Every post, every song, every public appearance was scrutinized and analyzed. While Mia thrived on the love and support of her fans, she also faced the harsh judgment of a world that didn't always understand her or the pressure she was under. She was expected to be everything at once: a fearless artist, a model, an influencer, a symbol of empowerment. But behind the screen, she was just a 23-year-old woman trying to figure it all out. And that's the thing about Mia. She was never just one thing. She was more than the Instagram videos and the music. She was a person who, like so many of us, was trying to navigate the complexities of life, fame, and mental health. The difference was, while she was out there living her truth, everyone else was watching, judging, and waiting for her to be perfect. Fame is a funny thing. On the outside, it looks like the dream come true, the flashy lifestyle, the fans, the constant attention. But for Mia Bennett, fame was a double-edged sword. Sure, it brought her incredible opportunities. She was a rising star, collaborating with big names in the music industry, selling out shows, and even stepping into the world of modeling. But with every step she took forward, she also had to deal with the harsh spotlight that seemed to follow her everywhere. Her every move, her every post was under a microscope. For someone who thrived on being herself, being watched all the time became a burden. Mia's life wasn't just her own anymore, it was everyone's business. She couldn't go to the store, have a meal with friends, or post a simple picture without the entire internet weighing in. Every little detail about her life was dissected, twisted, and reshared. From her fashion choices to the people she hung out with, there was nothing left to the imagination. She was more than just an artist or influencer, she was a spectacle. But the worst part of it all was that Mia didn't just have to handle the love from her fans. She also had to deal with the constant criticism. It wasn't just about her music or her style, it was about her entire existence. Every opinion, every decision was up for debate. If she wore something too revealing or made a comment that didn't sit well with some people, she faced a backlash that could last for days. Fans would turn on her, strangers would voice their judgment, and the internet would flood with hate. But Mia never backed down. She kept being herself, even when the pressure seemed unbearable. And then there were her romantic relationships. Mia was known for being private about her personal life, but that didn't stop people from speculating. Whether she was in a relationship or not, the rumors were never ending. Who was she dating? Was she secretly seeing someone? What was going on behind closed doors? Mia's relationships, just like everything else in her life, were picked apart by the public. Every interaction with a man, every photo with someone could spark a new wave of gossip. She'd hear the whispers, read the comments, and watch as her private life became the talk of the town. And despite the rumors, she stayed tight-lipped. Her personal life wasn't for the world to see. But even in silence, she couldn't escape the scrutiny. All of this, the constant attention, the pressures to be perfect, the judgment from strangers, it took a toll on Mia. Despite all the glamour that fame seemed to promise, Mia was often left feeling isolated. She was a young woman in her 20s, trying to figure out who she was, while the entire world had already decided who she should be. The expectations were immense. She had to be successful, confident, and flawless at all times, but inside, things weren't always so picture-perfect. Mia was open about her struggles, especially when it came to her mental health. She used her platform to share moments of vulnerability, revealing how difficult it was to keep up with the demands of her career and the weight of the spotlight. She talked about how challenging it was to find balance in a life that was constantly moving, never giving her a chance to just breathe. She spoke about feeling disconnected from herself, about how she sometimes had to fake it until she made it. And that's where the emotional toll of fame hit the hardest. Mia's words, raw and honest, revealed a side of her that few saw. Through her music, Mia poured out her frustrations, her pain, and her sense of loneliness. Her lyrics reflected the pressure she was under, the constant battle to stay true to herself while navigating the expectations of millions. Songs that seemed full of energy and confidence often had deeper undertones of insecurity and exhaustion. Mia had this incredible ability to mask her struggles with a smile, but behind that smile, there were days when it felt like everything was too much. Mental health wasn't something that many people wanted to talk about, especially in the entertainment world. There was this stigma that came with being a public figure and showing any kind of weakness. But Mia wasn't afraid to talk about it. She used her platform to raise awareness, even when she felt like she was barely holding it all together. She let her fans know that it was okay to not be okay, even when the world expected perfection. It was a message that resonated with so many people who were also fighting their own battles, hiding their pain behind smiles or posts that didn't tell the full story. Mia's struggles weren't just internal, they were also external. The pressure to perform, to keep up with the next trend, to maintain that carefully constructed public image, it was exhausting. And yet, every time the world demanded more from her, Mia delivered. But at what cost? The emotional toll of living under constant scrutiny took its toll on her spirit, and while she tried to balance it all, it became harder and harder to keep everything from crumbling beneath the weight of it all. The public saw her confidence, her music, her larger-than-life persona, but what they didn't see were the quiet battles that Mia fought in the dark. The moments of self-doubt, the fear of failure, the anxiety that came with knowing every decision would be criticized. Fame had given her a platform to share her voice, but it had also forced her to fight battles that no one could see. The world had no idea just how hard Mia was working to hold herself together, even when it felt like everything was falling apart. Mia Bennett was never one to shy away from controversy. In fact, she seemed to thrive in it. When she made the decision to join OnlyFans, it sent shockwaves through her fan base, and the media didn't waste any time jumping on the story. To many, the move was unexpected. OnlyFans was already known for its adult content, and for a young woman like Mia, who had already built her brand on music, fashion, and raw authenticity, it seemed like an unusual leap. Yet, Mia didn't see it that way. For Mia, OnlyFans wasn't about following a trend or jumping on a bandwagon, it was about taking control. She'd been in the public eye for years, and with each step, she had felt more and more like her life was being decided for her. The constant scrutiny, the judgment, the endless opinions from people who didn't know her, or worse, didn't care to understand her. Joining OnlyFans was, for her, a declaration of ownership. It was her space to share whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, without the filters that the rest of the world tried to impose on her. But the backlash came fast. People were divided. Some applauded her bold move, seeing it as a sign of empowerment. Mia was showing the world that she had control over her own body and her own narrative. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her what she could or couldn't do. This was her choice, and she was going to own it. For many fans, it was a moment of admiration. Mia wasn't just a product of the music and social media industries. She was a force creating her own path, unapologetically so. But not everyone saw it that way. Critics came out in full force, questioning her decision, calling it reckless, and some even going as far as to say it would ruin her career. The media had a field day, turning her involvement in OnlyFans into a headline that painted her as someone who had fallen from grace. The platform, often criticized for being associated with explicit content, didn't help her case. Headlines ranged from "What happened to Mia Bennett?" to "Is this the end of Mia's career?" People who had once admired her now seemed to be at odds with her. The judgment was harsh, and it seemed that Mia was being dragged through the mud by both sides, those who felt she had betrayed her fans, and those who thought she wasn't doing enough. Yet, Mia wasn't bothered by the criticism. If anything, it only fueled her determination to stand firm in her decision. She had always been transparent about her life and the struggles that came with fame, and this was no different. She wasn't hiding from the judgment or pretending to be something she wasn't. In her eyes, this wasn't about pleasing others. It was about embracing who she was and making a statement. Her involvement with OnlyFans wasn't just about financial gain or seeking attention. It was about freedom, about owning her space in a way that no one else could control. For Mia, this was about redefining what it meant to be a public figure. She wanted to challenge the norms, to break the taboos that often dictated how women, especially in the entertainment industry, should act. She wasn't interested in being put into a box. The world wanted her to be a polished, perfect version of herself, but Mia wasn't having it. Through OnlyFans, she could control her narrative, show the world exactly who she was on her terms. No more filters, no more expectations, just Mia. She framed it as empowerment. She framed it as a way to own her sexuality, to embrace her body, and to tell her story without anyone telling her how. She wasn't going to let society dictate what she could do with her image. And for those who criticized her, she had one simple message: she was going to do it anyway. She knew that people would talk, that some would never understand her choice, but that didn't matter. This was her journey, and she was determined to walk it unapologetically. By joining OnlyFans, Mia was taking a stand. She wasn't going to let anyone control the narrative of her life, not the media, not the haters, not anyone. In a world that was always trying to put her into a box, Mia Bennett was deciding once and for all that she was bigger than the labels the world wanted to stick on her. She was redefining what it meant to be an artist, a woman, and a person living in the public eye. And if the world didn't like it, well, that was just too bad. She was still going to be Mia. It was July 19th, 2024, a day that started just like any other. Mia Bennett, the fearless artist, the woman who had spent years building an empire of confidence and creativity, was in Tampa, Florida. She had arrived at the airport that morning, looking calm and collected. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, at least not on the surface. There were no signs of distress as she moved through the terminal, interacting briefly with staff, checking her phone, keeping to herself in the way she often did. The Mia that day seemed as grounded as ever, just another public figure going about her business in the routine of travel. But as the day went on, the atmosphere surrounding Mia shifted, though not in ways anyone could have predicted. Her fans, friends, and even airport workers would later recall different versions of what happened in those final hours before her passing. While some saw a woman in complete control, moving through the airport with ease, others would describe her as unusually quiet and withdrawn. Was she lost in thought? Had she been feeling something she wasn't ready to share with the world? In the moments leading up to her death, there was a sense that something was off, though no one could point to what exactly had changed. By 1:30 p.m. that same day, the news of Mia's passing came like a blow to the gut. Tampa police received a report of a deceased individual near the airport. When they arrived, it was Mia Bennett's body they found discovered in a secluded part of the airport, far from the bustle of the terminal. It was a private area, away from public view, which only deepened the mystery surrounding her death. The scene was puzzling. There were no signs of a struggle, no obvious cause for what had happened, no physical trauma, no evidence of foul play. For all intents and purposes, it looked as if Mia had simply collapsed. The initial investigation didn't suggest anything that would explain her sudden death. Law enforcement officials were careful to note that there was no immediate indication of violence or criminal activity. The situation didn't seem suspicious at first glance, but the more they looked, the more questions they had. What had Mia been doing in those final moments? Had she been alone? Were there people around her who saw something that could explain what had happened? Witnesses who were at the airport that day recalled different things. Some said she had appeared unusually withdrawn, as if she were deep in thought, almost distant. Others, though, insisted that she had been as calm as ever, checking her phone, walking through the terminal as though everything was just another day. It was as if two different versions of Mia had emerged in the hours leading up to her death. Was she battling something inside, something that no one had known about, or was she simply going through the motions of her usual life, unaware of what was to come? The conflicting reports from eyewitnesses painted a blurry picture. To some, Mia seemed perfectly fine. To others, she was a shadow of herself, her usual energy muted. But there was one thing that was agreed upon by everyone who saw her that day. No one had seen any signs of distress. No one could pinpoint a moment that would explain what had happened. As the news of her death spread, it was met with a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. Fans immediately took to social media, flooded with grief and questions. Was it an accident? Was it something else? The speculation didn't stop there. Rumors began to swirl, some saying it was a health issue that had gone unnoticed, others hinting at the emotional toll of fame that might have caught up with her. But amidst the theories and rumors, the truth remained just out of reach. In the days that followed, law enforcement continued to treat the case as non-suspicious, pending the results of further investigations. The authorities ruled out foul play, at least initially. The lack of trauma and the lack of any indication of violent injury made it difficult for investigators to come to any immediate conclusions. The autopsy results would be crucial, but they would take time to be finalized. In the meantime, Mia's family and close friends were left with no answers, just a deep sense of loss and confusion. The mystery surrounding Mia's death only seemed to grow in the wake of the official investigation. While fans and the media held on to their theories, the law kept to its course. Mia had left behind a legacy of empowerment, confidence, and resilience. Yet, in her final moments, there were no answers, just a young woman, taken far too soon, leaving behind a trail of questions that would never truly be answered. Once news of Mia's passing hit, the floodgates opened. As is often the case when a public figure dies suddenly, people couldn't stop talking. And with Mia, a woman whose life was constantly under scrutiny, the speculation was especially wild. Rumors started spreading faster than anyone could keep up with, each theory more outlandish than the last. Some whispered that Mia's involvement with OnlyFans had something to do with her death, that perhaps the backlash from her decision had pushed her over the edge. Could it have been a result of her controversial decision to embrace the platform that had so many people divided? Theories ranged from the suggestion that she had been targeted because of her work to the idea that someone might have used her fame against her in some way. But none of these theories had a shred of evidence to back them. Others talked about the possibility of a tragic accident. Was it an unfortunate mishap, a slip or a fall, something that happened in the wrong place at the wrong time? Mia had been at the airport alone, and people started to wonder if perhaps she had suffered from a medical issue that no one knew about. Was it a hidden health condition that led to her collapse, something Mia had kept from her followers and even her closest friends? The media ran with these ideas, and the more sensational the theory, the more attention it got. But despite all the wild theories, the authorities weren't drawing any conclusions. The case remained open, and the investigation was far from over. But as the rumors swirled, so did misinformation. One of the most persistent falsehoods to emerge was that Mia had been involved in a shooting in Philadelphia just days before her death. It didn't take long for social media to spread this claim like wildfire. People posted about it, shared it, and even news outlets began to report on it. But the details didn't add up. The sources didn't check out. The shooting story was quickly debunked by credible outlets, confirming that Mia had been in Tampa at the time of her death and that no such incident had taken place in Philadelphia. It was one more layer of confusion added to a situation that was already clouded in mystery. The problem with misinformation like this is that it spreads faster than truth. In the rush to be the first to report, many outlets had jumped the gun, offering details that weren't verified and stories that turned out to be completely false. This did more than just add to the confusion, it made it harder to find the real answers. Fans who were grieving had their emotions toyed with by the false stories that piled on top of the tragedy. What started as a moment of sadness quickly turned into a spectacle, with every theory and every rumor feeding the fire. As the days wore on, it became clearer that the rush to tell the story had overshadowed the need to tell the truth. The media sensationalized Mia's death, painting it with dramatic headlines, speculation, and often unfounded accusations. Instead of focusing on the real circumstances and waiting for the facts, outlets tried to cash in on the tragedy with headlines that got clicks, but didn't give people the clarity they needed. It was a reminder of how, in the age of social media and 24/7 news cycles, truth can easily be lost in a sea of misinformation. Through all the noise, the real investigation continued, slowly working to piece together the details. Mia's family, meanwhile, was left to grieve in private, while the public filled in the blanks with whatever they could imagine. The lesson here was clear. When tragedy strikes, the thirst for answers can make it easy to believe anything, even if it's far from the truth. For Mia, the confusion only added to the pain of her passing, leaving everyone to wonder, could the truth have been found if the noise hadn't gotten in the way? In the wake of Mia's sudden passing, her family was left to carry the heavy burden of grief in a very public way. The shock of losing a daughter, a sister, someone so full of life and promise, was more than any family should have to endure. And yet, amidst the outpouring of public support and the media frenzy surrounding Mia's death, her family asked for something simple: privacy. They needed space to mourn, to process the loss of someone they loved deeply without the added pressure of being under a microscope. Their statement, shared shortly after Mia's death, was a heartfelt plea for respect during one of the most difficult times in their lives. They wanted the world to know that Mia was more than just a public figure. She was their family, their daughter, their sister, and they needed time to grieve her loss without being bombarded by constant media attention. The family's request didn't go unnoticed. However, the tragedy of losing Mia only intensified the public's desire to pay tribute to her, to keep her memory alive in whatever way they could. Fans from across the world flooded social media with tributes, pouring their hearts out about how Mia had touched their lives. In cities, towns, and countries Mia had never visited in person, her music had been a source of strength and empowerment. The stories poured in. Fans shared how her lyrics had spoken to them during their toughest moments, how her authenticity had made them feel seen, and how her confidence had inspired them to be unapologetically themselves. For many, Mia wasn't just an artist. They considered her a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of resilience in a world that often felt too overwhelming to navigate. Through the tributes, Mia's legacy began to take shape in the most beautiful, unexpected ways. She had always used her platform to speak her truth, to challenge norms, and to push boundaries. Now, in death, she was inspiring even more people to embrace their own authenticity. Her music, once an outlet for her struggles, was now a source of strength for her fans. Her posts, her words, her energy, everything that had made Mia became a lasting influence that continued to resonate with everyone who had ever followed her journey. But it wasn't just her music that left a mark. Mia's presence on social media was an extension of her spirit, raw, real, and unfiltered. She had never been afraid to show both sides of herself, and in doing so, she created a space where others could do the same. Her posts about struggles, triumphs, and everything in between became a source of connection for her audience. They saw her vulnerability and found strength in it. For many, Mia's willingness to share the highs and lows of her life had made her feel like a friend they had never met, someone they could relate to on a deeply personal level. In the weeks following her death, murals appeared in Philadelphia, her hometown, filled with vibrant colors and powerful messages. Fans lit candles, left flowers, and wrote notes of gratitude and love. The city that had shaped Mia had now become a place of remembrance, honoring the young woman who had never stopped dreaming, never stopped pushing forward, and never stopped being herself. Mia's legacy was not just in the music she created, but in the way she had lived her life. She had shown the world that it was okay to be imperfect, that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, and that embracing your true self was the most powerful thing you could do. Her passing was heartbreaking, but her impact on her family, her fans, and the world at large was undeniable. As her family continued to mourn in private, the world carried on celebrating the woman who had left her mark on so many. Mia had become more than just a social media star or a rising musical talent. She was a symbol, a reminder to live authentically, to be bold, and to always fight for your truth. And while her time on this earth was tragically short, the mark she left would be felt for generations to come. When Mia Bennett passed away, the media quickly swarmed, eager to cover every angle of her death. But not all outlets approached the story with the same respect. Some jumped on the bandwagon of sensationalism, throwing out wild theories without verifying their facts, all in the name of clicks and views. These stories often focused more on the shock value than the truth, adding layers of confusion to an already tragic situation. Headlines screamed about conspiracy theories, speculating about her health, her career choices, and even making connections to her involvement with OnlyFans, all without evidence to back it up. Yet, there were other outlets that chose a different path. They focused on honoring Mia's life, remembering the woman behind the headlines. They celebrated her contributions, her music, and the way she had touched so many lives with her authenticity and confidence. These outlets respected the grief of her family and the wishes of those closest to her, steering clear of wild speculation. The difference between these two approaches couldn't have been more striking, one adding to the chaos, and the other trying to offer something meaningful amidst the tragedy. In times of loss, respectful reporting becomes even more crucial. The need to avoid spreading unverified claims is essential, especially when the details are unclear. Ethical journalism should prioritize compassion over sensationalism, focusing on facts and truth, not the lure of a quick headline. In Mia's case, her family and fans deserve to remember her for who she was, not for the false narratives that took over the media in her final days. Fame, on paper, is a dream come true. It offers the chance to influence, to create, to live a life most only dream of. But fame is also a heavy burden. Mia Bennett's story is a reminder of that. She achieved success at such a young age, building a name for herself in music, social media, and even modeling. Her confidence and boldness resonated with millions of fans, but behind the spotlight, she was carrying a weight that few can truly understand. Mia's rise to fame didn't come without its pressures. She constantly had to perform, not just in her career but in her personal life too. Every move she made was under scrutiny, every post dissected, every relationship questioned. Her privacy was no longer her own. The constant need to be in the public eye, to keep up with the demands of social media, and to maintain that perfect image, these are things most of us can't even begin to imagine. But for Mia, they were part of her reality. It's a reality that many stars have faced and continue to face. Mia's struggles echo those of other artists like Amy Winehouse and Britney Spears, who also dealt with the unbearable pressure of being in the public eye at a young age. For these women, fame became a double-edged sword. While it brought them success, it also made them vulnerable. It forced them to live up to expectations that were often impossible to meet, and the toll it took on their mental health was devastating. Mia, like them, had a side that few saw. She was human, just like anyone else. The constant public focus on her life, her choices, and even her smallest mistakes only added to her internal struggles. The media and public were unforgiving. They wanted her to be perfect, to be the bold, confident persona they saw online, but no one stopped to consider what was really going on behind the scenes. For young stars like Mia, the intense focus on every little detail of their lives can become suffocating. It's a relentless cycle of highs and lows of adoration and criticism, with no time to just be. In Mia's case, the pressure became overwhelming. She was constantly expected to show up, to perform, to be that confident, unapologetic version of herself. But at what cost? Fame had brought her opportunities, but it had also come with an emotional price. For someone who was so authentic in her work, it became harder to reconcile the public version of herself with the woman she truly was. The public may have loved her music, her confidence, and her boldness, but the constant weight of expectation was something no one truly understood. Mia's death serves as a sobering reminder of how the pressure of fame can become too much for anyone to bear, no matter how strong they appear on the outside. It also serves as a call for us to remember that behind every public figure is a person, someone with struggles, hopes, fears, and dreams just like the rest of us. It's easy to get caught up in the spectacle, but at what point do we stop and remember the human being behind the headlines? For Mia, the answer came too late, but her story should be a wake-up call for us all to take a closer look at the toll fame can take and to treat those we admire with the kindness and empathy they deserve. Mia Bennett may no longer be with us, but her influence is far from gone. Through her music, her social media presence, and the way she lived her life, Mia created an undeniable bond with her fans. She wasn't just a public figure, they saw her as someone they could relate to. Her vulnerability, her authenticity, and her willingness to show up as her true self in a world that demanded perfection made her a symbol of resilience. She showed her audience that it was okay to be real, to be flawed, and to stand tall in the face of challenges. In a time when so many people hide behind curated facades, Mia's bravery to embrace her own imperfections resonated deeply with those who followed her journey. Her message was simple yet powerful: stay true to yourself, no matter what. Mia didn't just sing about empowerment, she lived it. She reminded us all that our worth isn't defined by the opinions of others or the expectations placed upon us, but by our ability to remain authentic, even when the world tries to tear us down. That's the legacy she leaves behind. Mia didn't just inspire people with her music, she inspired them with her courage to be unapologetically herself. Mia's life, though short, offers important lessons that we can all take with us. We need to understand the pressures that fame brings and how it can impact a person's mental health. It's easy to look at someone in the spotlight and think they have it all together, but the truth is everyone carries their own battles. Mia's story is a powerful reminder that behind every public figure is a human being who faces struggles, has vulnerabilities, and experiences moments of weakness. This is a call to action for all of us, to be more compassionate, to check on the people in our lives, especially those who seem to have everything under control. It's essential that we support one another, whether they are in the public eye or not. No one should feel like they have to carry their burdens alone. Mia's legacy lives on in the way she made people feel seen and heard. Her courage to stay true to herself will continue to inspire others to embrace their authenticity. Let her story remind us all that we should never judge someone solely based on their public persona, because behind it, there's always more complexities, struggles, triumphs, and all the things that make us human. Mia Bennett's impact will never fade, and we should carry her message with us every day. Be true, be real, and never be afraid to be exactly who you are.